Shalom. This week we are reading Parashat Mishpatim in the book of Exodus, Sefer Shemot, beginning with chapter 21. We have a certain trajectory of Jewish history here that is expressing itself throughout the book of Exodus. 2 weeks ago we crossed the sea, we exited Egypt, and we crossed over onto dry land. And then we came to Mount Sinai, stood at the foot of the mountain, received the Torah, had that divine appointment. And now this week, in Parashat Mishpatim, we have a large amount of the main halachot of Torah, all sorts of laws about relationships, about social issues, about communal responsibility. And this portion, the Parashat of Mishpatim, begins with the concept of the Eved Ivri, the Hebrew slave. And who is the Hebrew slave? This is a person who either was sold by the courts into servitude because he had some sort of crime that he had to make up for. He stole. That's the example that's given. Or perhaps, alternatively, because of his own difficult situation, his own financial duress, his own inability to provide, he sold himself into servitude for a period of time. This is the Hebrew slave, and he has a set period of time that he is to serve for 6 years. After 6 years, he is to go free. But what happens, as the Torah tells us, if there is a situation wherein the Eved Ivri, the Hebrew slave, does not want to go free? He wants to continue serving his master. A certain virtual kind of reality, a virtual world, has been created for him. His master's given him a wife, and now he has a family. It's not really his, it's really his master's. And after 6 years, this man is supposed to go back to his original normal life. What happens if after 6 years of servitude, he wants to stay on? Well, the Torah prescribes here in the beginning of chapter 21 that there is a process where he is to be taken before the judges, and then the judges take him to the door of the home, take him to the 2 doorposts and the lintel, and as the Torah tells us, a awl is driven through his ear to the doorpost, and that man, with that symbolic hole in his ear, now becomes a servant for life. And actually, our sages tell us it's not really for life, it's for maximum of 50 years. Actually, it's not even for maximum of 50 years, it's until the next Jubilee year. Jubilee cycle might even be already close to the Jubilee year, might be very close. So it's not exactly lifetime, it's not even necessarily a whole 50 years, it's still the Jubilee. But the point is, this fellow, according to our sages, has really blown it, because he's supposed to return to a normal life of serving God with a family, and for whatever reason of vulnerability, for whatever reason of anxiety, he's decided he wants to stay on serving his master. And the big question, in terms of all of this symbolism, this iconography, why the door? Why is he taken to the doorpost, and a hole is made in his ear through to the doorpost, and then he receives this stature of a Eved Ivri, a Hebrew slave, forever, till the Jubilee? So our sages tell us, well, that ear that heard me say, the Master of the Universe says, at Mount Sinai I said, do not steal. But that ear that heard that, and went against my commandment, let him be a servant forever. And moreover, if we're talking about a person who, because of his own circumstances, sold himself into this state of slavery, so God says, that ear that heard me say, you shall have no other master but me, let him receive this mark. And that's as far as the concept of the ear is concerned. But there's another question that Rashi mentions. He says, but why the door? Why do the 2 doorposts, or the lintel of the door, more than any other aspect of the household, why does this door become the vehicle to facilitate this ceremony, this important symbolic passage, where this person has now basically forfeited his freedom, his place in the people of Israel for basically a lifetime, this period of 50 years? Why the door? Rashi tells us in the name of Rabbi Shimon, because the door was witness in Egypt when Hashem passed over the door and said, "You shall have no other gods but me." And that whole episode of God passing over the doors of the houses of the Jews, so Rashi says, in the name of this Rabbi Shimon, the door is the excellent facilitator of this process. And what's really going on here, I ask you? What's really the message here? I think that there's a theme. I think the theme is, there's a lot of walking here in the last few portions of the Torah. I think we're a people that are supposed to be walking. We're supposed to be walking towards our destiny. Look, Parashat Beshalach. We walked out of Egypt. We walk through the sea. Parashat Yitro. We walk to Mount Sinai. And we stand at the feet of Mount Sinai there, really, through our receiving the Torah, to become a nation. Parashat Mishpatim begins with the concept of the Hebrew slave and the iconography that the Torah uses to describe to us the exquisite irony of this situation, of this person who has failed to meet the crisis of the moment in his own personal life. The iconography that the Torah uses is a door. Because all throughout our lives, we're walking. One door is opening, another door is closing. We walked out of Egypt, we walked through the sea. We walked to Mount Sinai and we stood there. And now, this parsha is also opening, as it were, with the door. And the Eved Ivri, this unfortunate, who has brought this situation upon himself, is taken to the door. And it's not only the concept of the ear that didn't hear so clearly, didn't hear as well as it should have. It's a question of his being really momentarily affixed to the door that he didn't walk through. The door that Hashem opens, a door to his own freedom, to his own life, to our lives as free people. And who is a free person? Our sages tell us only someone who is a servant of the Almighty. And these doors are everywhere. And this is the major theme of our lives, that we have to walk through the door. And this fellow, the Eved Ivri, didn't hear so well when God said, "I am your master, not him." He didn't walk through that door. And this is really the theme. It's not only hearing, but it's that when the door is there, God is not going to push us through it. We have to be able to walk through, to listen, to make that choice, to live as free people. And the only true freedom is subservience to Hashem.